Hello, my name is Roman, and today I'll be talking about the article Reflecting Our Better Nature by Deborah Tatar and applying it to the Turkle video. So she actually opens up her article by talking about the human-computer interaction field and how their practices and processes are not keeping up with the fast-paced evolution of technology. So she brings up this idea of convenience and influence. It is more convenient to investigate matters of direct economic impact rather than looking at the long-term issues of quality of life and the nature of society. And also, when it comes to influence, the influence of computers is far too important to be left purely to just one or two aspects of society, which is currently what human-computer interaction looks at. So her main argument is actually about human malleability and technological stubbornness. So that's basically how easily we can be altered in our views. So we are influenced by others and are motivated to try to influence others to agree with us. Computers, on the other hand, are influencers themselves, and when we try to alter things about them, we fail. This leads us to become passive, feel incapable, and lower our self-esteem. So the author actually stated, when viewed as a person, the computer is a bully. And there are four aspects to this argument, which I will talk about in the upcoming slides. So the first aspect of the argument has to do with social trends and how they are changing. According to the book Generation Me, which Tatar references, in today's society more and more people are becoming anxious, depressed, and ultimately miserable. The cause is a change in the way children are brought up and taught in schools, which focuses on the individual self. This calls for a need to focus more on people and how we think, especially when it comes to human-computer interaction. Our current information and data is insufficient. Next up is properties of interaction. When we interact with computers, we tend to look at the properties of that interaction, which reflect normal human-to-human interactions to a certain extent. First off, computers react to input. So whenever we want something done or we tell the technology something, there's usually a cue that returns back an output. Next, computers are linguistic, meaning that they're good at figuring out what's being asked of them in that specific context with even the most minimal information. Finally, computers are opaque, meaning that when you interact with them, you can't see through them and know how they will react, just like in normal human conversations. Next is the human self-concept. So according to the looking glass self theory, how we see ourselves is influenced by the ways in which we are seen by those around us. So much like how interactions with pets or babies can influence us, so does our interaction with technology. However, there's a big difference between spending time with a baby and spending time with a computer. When it comes to babies and pets and other living things, we could actually make a difference in their lives and express personality traits. So this could include caring for the baby, being playful, being patient. These are things that we can't really show with technology. And also, when it comes to technology, interactions do not allow us to fully express ourselves, show empathy, or receive feedback. Finally, there is the design of computer systems. So, the design of technologies give it the freedom to be in control and uncompromising. It sets the rules and it can't be negotiated with. Whatever the code says, that's what the technology will run, and we can't really argue with it. So when we interact with computers, The self that we see portrays a person who is submissive and powerless. We either change our ways for the technology or we end up leaving it. So this article actually connects in a couple of ways to Turkel's arguments, especially in the aspects regarding social trends and the changing self-concept. So first, there's empathy and the self-concept. As Turkel mentioned in the video, it is impossible for a child to develop a true sense of empathy by interacting with a talking toy robot, mostly due to the design of the robot, which simply responds to predetermined cues. You might feel a sense of connection with the robot, but by avoiding true human interactions, the child's self-concept is harmed because he or she is not able to apply their emotions to the robot or receive truthfully meaningful replies. Solitude and boredom is another important point. Our current cognitive processing is to multitask to be productive, satisfy our innate desire for interactions, and to avoid boredom at all costs. In the video, Turkel brings up an experiment in which people are told to be alone in a room for 15 minutes. In the room is also a technological device that emitted shocks when touched. The researchers found that within 6 minutes, a vast majority of participants resorted to shocking themselves rather than remain bored. Another example would be the rule of 7, which states that it takes 7 minutes to know how a conversation will go. Many times during a conversation, however, a person's attention quickly turns to their device to see the latest tweet or inbox in an attempt to not be bored anymore. We like our devices because they listen to our inputs and know what interests us even before we do. Finally, it is important to mention the change in social trends and the diminishing amount of much-needed interaction. Turkel mentions a father who talked about how he spends time with his little daughter. He also mentions how, during this bonding time, he has a phone in hand and is checking his emails. This has two negative effects. The first being the father's lower quality of interaction with his daughter due to the phone being a distraction. An even bigger effect is the one on the daughter, who doesn't get the full potential of the interaction, such as having her feelings and emotions heard and listening to her father's thoughts. A more impactful example that Turkel brings up is the one about the young girl at school who told a boy to do what his dad had done, which was ultimately commit suicide. In both cases, technology has provided a way for us to avoid putting our maximum effort into communicating with others and, more importantly, learn about empathy through those interactions. So that basically sums up this article. Thank you for watching.